Well, welcome to Car Mechanics with Matt. Now that's a scary thought, isn't it? But I can remember a long time ago, I purchased my first car. Now it's a very long time ago, but and it was a 1981 Ford Fiesta. I love that car, and even though it was a tad sluggish to say the least, and it was very hard on petrol, and I was living in Dublin at the time, so you're always stuck in traffic, they're great memories that I have. And I recall one weekend anyway, going down country to visit a friend, and on the Saturday the car started to splutter, and the next thing I know, it had stopped on a roundabout. And I had a friend with me, and we tried desperately to push start the car. I think we tried jump leads. After a lot of huffing and puffing, we gave up. It just was not going. We lifted the bonnet and we tried to determine what the problem was. I have to admit, I'm not overly mechanical, so I wasn't much use, but supposing I had been really bullish and declared it's my car, I know what I think is wrong with it. Now, I could have changed the battery, it still wouldn't have started. I could have cleaned the carburetor, it would not have gone either. I could have decided the alternator was dead and replaced it, it still wouldn't have gone. I could have changed all the spark plugs, I could have put a new engine in it, it wouldn't have started, because unless I diagnosed exactly what was wrong with it. And the fact was that I had run out of petrol, and we, like two idiots, were pushing the car down the road. Now, I could have pushed the car that day for miles and it would never have started. I could have, but only for my astute friend who smiled and asked when did I last fill up on fuel. With car mechanics, there's a logical diagnosis process to figure out what is wrong, and then the car will work. I could be very sincere and convinced in my mechanical diagnosis, but only petrol was going to start my car that day. And the same is true regarding the bigger things of life. As we meet dysfunction and brokenness, how do we decide what is wrong and how do we fix things? Oprah famously encouraged people to live your truth, which sounds enticingly self-determining and comfortable and wonderful, but what if there's no such thing as, certainly with the Fiesta, there was no such thing as my truth with what was wrong with the Fiesta. There was a one mechanical truth. It had no petrol. And we can't just throw reasoning and logic out the window when it comes to spirituality or the bigger questions of life. There has to be some consistent logical thinking put in place. Pilate, you may remember in the scriptures at the trial of Jesus, asks what is truth? And it's a really good question, especially seeing as Pilate was making decisions largely based on keeping the peace and not trying to upset the apple cart of public opinion. Listen to what took place that day. Jesus said to Pilate, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders, but my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. A great question. The prophet Isaiah very insightfully declared during his time that, he says this, and it's really poignant, he says, "Truth has stumbled in the streets, honesty cannot enter." We've been caught up in, haven't we, in a new world of conspiracy theories and scams, not really sure who we can trust. Every time we read something on social media or from a newspaper, it's wise to ask ourselves, is this a reputable source? There are perhaps dangerous trends of public life and polls whereby decisions are made based on polls of public opinion rather than strong leadership. Ultimately, the question simmering underneath all this is who decides what is right and wrong? Is there such a thing as universal truth? Or is there just your truth, a truth that we make up, an a la carte truth? It certainly is not true in the world of mechanics. It wasn't true for my car anyway. Well, what is true after all? Does it matter if we base laws and decisions on lies or on truth? Can falsehood become a stable foundation for community life? If truth has stumbled and been tripped up in our streets, is that then a safe place to live? And then other questions. Is it worth searching for truth? Does it matter? May I respectfully suggest that any diagnosis of our society and community that is based on half-truths or worse, based on lies, no matter how well intended, will eventually collapse like a deck of cards. What I'm encouraging is a soulful search for truth, a questioning debate rather than a blind acceptance of the values we live by. We must follow the logical projections of the truth that we live by and put it to the test. If we reap what we sow, then what are you and I sowing? If I put spent chip oil in my petrol tank in my car, I not may, but I will probably have a problem. Garbage in, garbage out, and the same principle works with us, doesn't it? And in closing, may I point you to just a couple of key phrases that Jesus remarked about truth for your consideration. Jesus says, if you, in John's Gospel chapter 8, he says, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now I realize that's an outrageous statement if it's not true. But what if it's right? It follows that basing lives on solid truth will stand to the test of time and scrutiny. In an even potentially more crazy sounding statement, Jesus said the following. In chapter 14, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If Jesus is deluded or mad, then such statements can be discarded and ignored, and our search for truth goes on. If, however, Jesus is and was who he claimed to be, the Saviour of the world, the one who created us all and knows how to make us whole, then we need to listen. For example, if I had met Mr. Ford that day as I ran out of petrol, who designed and built my Fiesta, I could have argued with him about how to get my car going and how it runs best, but it would have been foolish. Mr. Ford made it, he designed it, he built it, he knows how it functions. The same is true, I would suggest, of God himself. If Jesus is who he said he is, then he knows how society, community, and our lives are to function best. And he knows the truth, and in fact he is the truth to base it on. So don't take my word for it. Go pick up a Bible and search for the truth for yourselves. You never know, but that search for truth may actually set you free, just like Jesus said it would. I'm your host, Matt Tutterby of Bundoran Bible Reflections. Great to be with you today. God bless.